We're back, and I'm very pleased to say we're joined by Robert Charles. Once again, we're talking about some of the most momentous issues of our times. Have government officials like Nancy Pelosi withheld critical information that we need to have? And is there going to be now a mechanism inside the Department of Homeland Security whereby, as our guest has said, we not only have thought police, we have armed thought police telling us what we cannot know and suppressing us if we decide we want to talk about it. Bobby, I'm really struck by what I see as an intrusion by the Biden administration, which has been deeply compromised, as we've talked about on many occasions, by the Chinese Communist Party, of a whole system of which a disinformation governance board can be an example that is being brought to bear for the purpose of essentially fundamentally transforming our country. We're doing a webinar in the course of the day today. As this program airs, it will have happened, and I encourage people to look for the video of it at presentdangerchina.org. It'll probably be up in a couple of days, but it's a very, very important discussion about a digital gulag and what it means that we're looking at a time when we have not only this disinformation governance board, so called, but we also have vaccine passports, and we have, in addition, um, a programmable currency evidently headed our way, all of which portends more constraints on our freedoms and personal uh, privacy for that matter. Talk us through that if you would, Bobby.
Yeah, so from the specific to the more general, on the specific front, I couldn't agree with you more, Frank, that there's danger whenever the government gets into the business of trying to tell us what we can and can't hear. That really flies in the face of all the sentiments that our founding fathers took to heart and placed in the First Amendment. And of course, when concentration of power begins to eclipse one amendment, it eclipses all of them. And in fact, I think it was Justice Cardozo that said that if you eclipse the First Amendment, you have effectively eclipsed all the rest of them. I think I would argue that the Second Amendment has that same value. But to the larger point, we live in times, Frank, when I'm reminded that sometimes we hear lots of people voice an opinion about something, and they don't always go one level deeper, which is the why behind that opinion. And I will just say in a nutshell that Ronald Reagan, for whom you worked and for whom I worked, was very clear about the whys behind avoiding and in fact, consciously trying to stand down a concentration of power. And the reason that our founding fathers were so dedicated to the principle of limited government is because, again, to borrow, I think, from Francis Bacon, or one of the great British minds, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you concentrate power, you are essentially, it's a zero sum game. Every bit of power you give to the federal government, whether it's for misinformation monitoring or for monitoring our passports or our shots or monitoring something else, has to do with the fact that you're taking that liberty away from someone somewhere, just the way tax dollars come from somewhere. And the answer is that you're taking them away from the individual liberty of the citizen. And so at the end of the day, this is a zero sum game. The more powerful the federal government gets, the less powerful you and I and every one of your listeners is. And this is why we have the Bill of Rights. This is why the founders said, no, we're not going to allow concentration of power. What was the revolution about? It was about concentration of power. So whether that concentration is in a tyranny or in a communist government or in a socialist government, it's irrelevant. What matters is that the power, the sovereignty belongs to the people. And that means you and me and your listeners. It does not belong to the government.
That's provided the Constitution of the United States remains intact and is faithfully executed by a whole bunch of people, including Joe Biden and his subordinates in the executive branch, and every single member of Congress
Yes.
who swore an oath of office, as you and I have done,
Yes.
to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. So, Bobby, we only have about 2 or 3 minutes left. Talk to us through what we should do
Yeah.
given these momentous threats, the concentration of power, as you call it. in a government that is clearly bent on fundamentally transforming our constitutional republic into something I think very much along the lines of the China model.
So, regardless of where their aspirations are leading, the clinical observations are that they are concentrating power. And that is eclipsing individual liberty. So, what can you do? You can do three or four things. The first thing is at the local level, whether that's a school board, to your neighbor, addressing a piece of the legislature in your state, or at the federal level, people need to speak up and say, no, 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 no. These are my rights. These are my rights. My First Amendment right, my Second Amendment right, my Fourth, my Sixth, my Fifth.
Mhm.
These are not rights that belong to you, the government, to take them away from me.
Right.
So you have to be knowledgeable. You have to self-inform. Number one. Number two, you need to. I think they need to cut off the funding for this misinformation board, and
Amen.
frankly, potentially threaten funding across DHS and even the White House for other activities of that the sort. The third thing I think we need to do is we need to call out the media and the social media and start moving in terms of trying to retake, if you will, the high ground of public communication in the private sector as well. And I
Mhm.
see this happening at Twitter and some other places. But I think it is critically important that people know their rights, assert their rights, and demand that those that represent them honor their rights.
Amen. Probably, I would say there's a fourth item that we can also do something with, and that is, as I mentioned, every single one of these individuals has sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. If they go down this road, they are in breach of that oath. And it seems to me where appropriate, they should be impeached. And in other cases, they should certainly be charged and prosecuted for violating that oath of office because there is nothing less than the future survival of our country on the line. We have to leave it at that, my friend, for today. So much more to talk about. Thanks for joining us this week. I hope you'll do so again next. And thanks to the rest of you for being part of this edition of Securing America. As always, I feel it's important for us to be showing you what you can do to help do just that. And I hope you feel better equipped to help us in that regard. And for more information about what you can do, how you can do it, and the kind of people who are in the business of trying to protect the country we love, I commend to you securingamerica.tv, our website. Also, you can follow me at Frank Gaffney on all of the usual platforms. And then, as always, I hope you'll go forth and multiply.